So let's start off by talking about what Brian Cox had to say a couple days ago, and how when I covered, I always like, which story was it that I was covering? When I covered Jonathan Majors in relation to the comments that Michael B. Jordan had made, and I talked about how when it comes to an abusive man, one who has demonstrated a pattern of creepy, predatory, abusive behavior, the only thing that matters to a lot of people is the fact that they are talented and have a very illustrious career. And, we are all the worse off from not having that person's talent continue to be a part of the industry. Yeah. So Brian Cox, who, you know what, Brian Cox shows time and time again that he is a petty bitch, that he loves to stir shit up. Okay. Every time he opens his mouth about Jeremy, where in the beginning it was like, okay, that's kind of funny. Him being like, you just act, right? Like, I don't understand it. You just act. And then it got to a point where it's like, you're nasty. You're just being a bitch. You're just like constantly opening your mouth to shit on Jeremy Strong, who, like, by all accounts was not doing anything to harm anybody on the set of Succession. Like, he is a hater, but it's gotten to a point now where it's like, it's not cute. Okay. You're actually just really fucking annoying. Chuck, thank you for that gifted sub. Thank you for the 2 gifted subs. So, anywho, Brian Cox defended Kevin Spacey in a new interview with the UK publication The Eye Paper, calling the Oscar winner an old friend of mine and asking the public, how dare you cancel anybody? Oh no. Oh no. How dare that we make decisions over continuing to consume somebody's art based on who it turns out they are as a person. Like, how dare we, as the public, who are the consumers of art, make any decisions around whether or not we are going to continue to support certain people based on their behavior. Spacey has not worked in Hollywood since being accused by several men of sexual misconduct starting in 2017. Okay. Kevin is an old friend of mine, Cox said. All right, Kevin did certain things, sir. Sir, Mr. Brian Cox, sir. When you come out the gate and say, all right, Kevin did certain things, and then you go on to defend him, it ain't good, all right? Like, oh, okay, so you're at least somewhat owning up to Kevin Spacey being a piece of shit. Yeah, he just did, okay, he did certain things, but I like that in Brian Cox's mind, it's like, whatever, sure, he did certain things. Who gives a shit? Because the next thing he says is he also did a lot of extraordinary work. And this is a problem. This mentality, this belief that somebody's artistic talent overrides any horrible thing that they have done. Hi. And it is used as an excuse all the time for male abusers in the entertainment industry. Whether it's here in Hollywood or it's over in France, like, that was the argument that was used for Gerard, and same in sports, right? It's not just artistic talent. It's like just, athletic talent, artistic talent, somebody who means a lot to quote unquote culture, right? Who has produced either art or athletic wins, like sport wins, that means a lot, that has ingrained them into our culture. Yeah, they say this all the time in sports as well. So in France, Gerard Depardieu, who is a fucking monster, he was defended by many people in the entertainment industry, many of his peers, for these exact same reasons, where they're not even really denying that he is a monstrous piece of shit, but they're like, he's too vital to the French film industry. He is a master of the craft, right? There is no like the French film industry is inseparable from the artistic achievements and contributions of Gerard Depardieu, and so that is the most important thing. And so it's the same thing that yet again Brian Cox is saying about Kevin Spacey. Like, okay, Kevin did certain things, but he also did a lot of extraordinary work, and that's the only thing that should matter here. And I find that really petty, and I just don't like it. It's sneaky and petty and not right. Really, sir? Because you're the one being fucking petty and weird and defending predators on the basis of their artistic merit. Not everybody is abusive. Okay, this is Kevin. You know what Brian Cox does in his statements here? He checks every box for the commonly said things to defend abusers. I have never found Kevin Spacey abusive. Yeah, so here's the thing, Brian Cox. That's not how this works. Because Kevin Spacey didn't abuse you, therefore he's not abusive. No. Right. Even though earlier he's like, yeah, he did certain things, but he didn't abuse me. It is fuck ass logic, okay? It's not logic. It's just, it is just making an excuse for someone who has a history of abusive behavior, of, doing awful things and trying to provide cover for that and be like, well, they didn't do it to me. You know who people have said this about? Every single fucking abuser who has been unmasked. Okay. They said this about Harvey Weinstein. They said this about Bill like every one of them, you will have people who are in the industry that they're in being like, well, they didn't abuse me, so take with that what you will. Not everybody is abusive. I have never found Kevin Spacey abusive. He was misguided, certainly in terms of his sexuality, but that's to do with him coming to terms with his own sexuality and how he's dealt with that and the dilemma that it's caused in his life. Gross, okay? No, because what you're doing... Oh my God. Chuck, thank you. Shisho Pete's. Chuck dies 50 gifted subs. Holy moly. Thank you for that generous amount of subs and all these new people who now don't have to miss a word of what I'm saying about how Kevin Spacey and Brian Cox and all these fucking people suck. Chuck says tattoo. No. Shh. Quiet you. Okay, this is gross because what he's doing is being like, well, no, the problem was that Kevin Spacey was closeted and he was struggling with his sexuality. And it's like, fuck that, okay? There are a lot of people who struggle with their sexuality. It takes years for them to, embrace who they are publicly and to come out of the closet, and they're not abusive, okay? They are not predators. No, gross. We've got to an age now where people are going, oh, that's bad. He's out. Boom. He's canceled. Cox concluded. What do you mean canceled? I can just hear him screaming as Logan Roy. How dare you cancel anybody? Yeah. How dare we cancel anybody rather than how dare people in positions of power continue to use that power, abuse that power to harm people. Yeah, but how dare we try and cancel these people? It's the law. Since claims of Spacey's alleged inappropriate behavior and sexual assault first arose in the wake of the Me Too movement in 2017, several legal cases have been brought against the two-time Oscar winner in 2022. So, like, just... Pardon. Excuse. So just remember that the allegations around Kevin Spacey number past 30, okay? Like, there are dozens of allegations, and they all point to a pattern of predatory behavior, all right? There were like 20 people from the old Vic, the theater that he worked at in London, who accused him of harassment and assault. There were many, many people on the set of House of Cards, okay? Crew members, people who worked on, for Netflix production, who said that Kevin Spacey sexually harassed them. And Kevin Spacey ended up being acquitted of the Anthony Rapp in the Anthony Rapp trial, as well as the UK trial, but there are still additional allegations on top of that. And he had to pay $31 million to Netflix for violating their policies of no sexual harassment. He is, I believe, still facing a separate trial from these ones. In the documentary that came out that Channel 4 produced, there were men who were not a part of these lawsuits at all who made allegations against Kevin Spacey. Like, it goes on and on and on, and it establishes that Kevin Spacey, from the early days of his life, like all the way back to high school, and then through his, theater career, and then his film and television career, has been a predator, has preyed on many, 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 many men. Hell's Preacher, thank you for the 4 months. Chuck, thank you for another gifted. Okay. 2-part documentary Spacey Unmasked aired last year and featured previously unheard of testimonies about Spacey's alleged sexual misconduct, including a claim that he allegedly groped another House of Cards actor on set. Another claim accused Spacey of making an aggressive sexual move on a classmate in high school. Also in the documentary, there's like really a lot of crazy shit that is that comes up in that documentary. And Kevin Spacey's brother, his older brother, Randy Fowler, says in the documentary that their late father was a Holocaust denier and neo-Nazi who physically and sexually abused him. So it seems as if Kevin Spacey was not abused by their father, but the brother was. But just because Kevin Spacey wasn't abused doesn't mean that there wasn't like that there wasn't like early shit happening in his life, and not to blame trauma for somebody growing up and just being a predator, right? Like exhibiting predatory behavior for years. But there's a lot in Kevin Spacey's past that points to his behavior developing at a pretty early age. And how many people have said, like, the issue of Kevin Spacey is it was well known that his behavior would create a hostile environment. So, like, by the time he got to House of Cards, his reputation was really an open secret, because that's what happens in the entertainment industry. Not an excuse, but there's a lot in someone growing up in an environment where that's normalized. Exactly. What happens often in the entertainment industry, just like in politics, just like in, in these industries where power really accumulates and where people are in people become public figures, and there is there's like a worship that accompanies people in these positions that makes them only more powerful, right? Like they are they're just given more reasons to be able to abuse their power, that these long histories of individual abusers are an open secret, right? R. Kelly, P. Diddy, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Kevin Spacey. Every single time it's like, oh yeah, that was an open secret. Oh yeah, it was like, oh, if you're working on a set with them, like, watch out. Hey, just so you know, that you're their type, right? Like they're probably gonna sexually harass or sexually assault you. Just a heads up, okay? So anyway, okay, back to this. I can't wait to see Kevin back at work. He's a genius. Oh, this was Sharon Stone saying, yeah. There's not a lot of A-list talent who have come out on like the like waving the flag for Kevin Spacey, but Sharon Stone, Liam Neeson, now Brian Cox, these are a few who have used the Kevin Spacey is a genius and he needs to be back in the industry. Okay, so let's take a look at why we are talking about Kevin Spacey today. We have talked about him multiple times before, but we are specifically talking about him again today because Guy Pearce, who's in the film The Brutalist, Guy Pearce, who love to see him having like a career resurgence. You know, when he was in Mayor of Easttown, he was great, and now he's gotten now his name is back in headlines because of The Brutalist. So Guy Pearce was being interviewed. He was being interviewed by Scott Feinberg, who does the like all things Oscars related. He does the Oscar predictions via Feinberg Forecast for The Hollywood Reporter. He was talking to him on his podcast Awards Chatter, and he got emotional and choked up, recalling his experiences working with Kevin Spacey on the set of 1997's LA Confidential. So here's what he had to say. He talked about it only briefly when he called Spacey a handsy guy to... this was back in 2018 when he had first mentioned Kevin Spacey... Kevin Spacey preying on him. He said he was a handsy guy. Said that to Andrew Denton back in 2018. Although he quickly clarified his comments, saying, I very much understand that it's too sensitive a topic to be brushed off. Although I wasn't sexually assaulted or molested, I was made to feel uncomfortable. He said in a follow-up statement, I addressed and handled the situation when it took place, hence my regret at making it public now. Pearce is far more open today, but still choosing his words carefully. Pearce noted how he was reluctant to use the word victim, even though, and this is a quote from him, even though I probably was a victim to a degree. I was certainly not a victim by any means to the extent that other people have been to sexual predators. So I just want to say, first of all, that yes, that makes you a victim still. There is no, well, I wasn't gang raped, so I'm not a victim. Or, well, I didn't have it as bad as other people have had it. Like, you know, this is still being a victim, but because of the way that sexual assault and sexual misconduct in general is presented, is what we think about it is like that there's rape and then everything else. And it is important to distinguish, right, between like sexual harassment in the workplace where someone is creating a very hostile environment and then the act of rape. But there are a lot of people who are victims of sexual misconduct who, because they are not raped and then because they are not violently raped, feel as if they are not victims or that they shouldn't take up any space talking about their experiences. Hell's Preacher, thank you. That said, Pearce responded to Spacey's alleged advances on the set of LA Confidential by brushing it off and thinking, that's nothing. No, that's nothing. I did that for 5 months, and really, I was sort of scared of Kevin because he's quite an aggressive man. He's extremely charming and brilliant at what he does, really impressive, etc. He holds a room remarkably, but I was young and susceptible, and he targeted me, no question. Hansen's neo-noir LA Confidential follows 3 Los Angeles policemen as they investigate a series of murders amid departmental corruption in the 1950s. Pearce played one of the cops, Ed Exley, opposite fellow leads Spacey and Russell Crowe. While he remains on good terms with fellow Aussie Crowe, a great mate of mine, he says, the same can't be said of Spacey. While filming on location in Los Angeles, Pearce was in town with his then-wife, Kate. He recalled telling her that the only days I feel safe are the days when Simon Baker's on set because I'm dumped like a hot potato and Kevin focuses on Simon because he was 10 times prettier than I am. It wasn't until decades later that Pearce was able to fully process what had happened, which, that's usually how it goes, especially when we're talking about like when we're talking about victims of sexual harassment and sexual assault, where this took place in like the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, because the conversation that we're having around this topic now, and the way that we are openly having these conversations is very different from how it was for a lot of time. So that's why we see this again and again, where people in recent times will talk about experiences that they had decades ago, where it took them a very long time to process, to understand what had happened. And now having having the understanding, having the language, the just everything that they didn't have before to understand that what happened to them was wrong. So in October 2017, at a time when Hollywood was on the verge of being upended amid the Me Too movement, veteran actor Anthony Rapp came forward with claims that Spacey made sexual advances at a party in New York in 1986 when he was 14. Yeah, and remember the first thing that Spacey did was he came out and was like, I don't remember that, but I was probably like fucked up. But if I did that, I'm sorry. Like, that was the first thing that he did. And then things got really, really serious. Like, it was serious, but then it got even more serious because more and more men came out in the wake of Anthony Rapp making his claims. And that's when Kevin really lawyered up and like locked everything down. But then he did the Let Me Be Frank, where he brought back Frank Underwood in the creepiest fucking video of all time. A wave of accusations followed, extending from film sets and production locations to the Old Vic Theater, where Spacey had served as the artistic director. Pearce said that he caught the headlines. I was in London working on something, and I heard the reports, and I broke down and sobbed. And I couldn't stop. I think it really dawned on me the impact that it had occurred, and how I sort of brushed it off, and how I had either shelved it or blocked it out or whatever. That was a really incredible wake-up call, he explained, his voice breaking with emotion at one point. Though he didn't specify the date or the details of what occurred, Pearce noted that he has since had a couple of confrontations with Kevin that got ugly. Looking back on the talk show reveal, Pearce said he found himself in the weird position of not wanting to focus on his personal experience with Spacey, and yet I don't want him to get away with what he gets away with. He is implementing a new strategy these days. I just try to be more honest about it now and call it for what it is. Hollywood reporters reached out to a rep for Spacey for response to Pearce's comments. And here is what Kevin Spacey had to say. Also, he looks fucking terrible.
Comments that you made about me, and while I would have preferred not to have to play this out in the media, you obviously have your own reasons for wanting to do exactly that. But we worked together a long time ago. You know, if I did something then that upset you, you could have reached out to me. We could have had that conversation. But instead, you've decided to speak to the press, who are now, of course, coming after me because they would like to know what my response is.
Yeah, if I did something to you, then why didn't you confront me? Wow. Yeah, so that is a way to deflect, of course, off of your responsibility in your fucking behavior, and instead is like, well, it's your fault. You didn't say anything. Like, if it was really such a problem, if you were really so uncomfortable, you should have said something. That is textbook abuser deflection, like, you know, blaming the victim, etc.
Is to the things that you said. You really want to know what my response is? Grow up.
Hey, Brian Cox. Yeah, this is your buddy, okay? This is your fucking buddy who you are defending. All right. This man is Frank Underwood. Truly. Just because you killed Frank Underwood off doesn't mean Frank Underwood ever fucking died. Like, there was always something about Kevin Spacey with the characters that he played where sometimes, you know, an actor is just so good at playing a villain that will go, man, I wonder if it's not, if maybe they're actually a villain in real life. Like, they're just too good and they play these roles all the time and blah, blah, blah. And of course, like, that's silly, right? Because acting is you're performing, and there are some of the kindest people in the world who are brilliant at playing some of the worst villains, right? Obviously, a Bryan Cranston is not a Walter White. But there was just always that thing with Kevin Spacey where it was like, where people would joke about it too, where they would joke about it. We'd be like, Kevin Spacey's got to be like a villain, right? Because he just, he plays these villains all the time. He's just so good at playing.
Did you also, by the way, tell the press that a year after we shot LA Confidential, you flew to Savannah, Georgia, while I was shooting Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, just to spend time with me? I mean, did you tell the press that too? Or does that not fit into the victim narrative you have?
So this is always another thing that that will be used as a defense of, oh yeah, I'm so horrible, then why did you stay with me? Why did you continue being in business with me? Why did you continue to have a relationship with me? Where he's still not denying anything. Like, let's be clear about that. Guy Pearce first brought up in 2018 that Kevin Spacey got handsy with him. And then recently he went on Scott Feinberg's podcast and he really got emotional by opening up further about his experiences with Kevin Spacey. And Kevin Spacey has not denied Guy Pearce saying, yeah, Kevin Spacey was sexually inappropriate to me. Like, he made things incredibly uncomfortable, and I was like harassed and touched inappropriately by him. And Kevin Spacey's response is, grow up. Oh yeah? Well, why did you come to set a year later? Huh? Oh yeah, why didn't you confront me at the time then? Holy shit.
Going. So anyway, I apologize that I didn't get the message that you don't like spending time with me. I mean, maybe there was another reason, I don't know. But that doesn't...
Oh my God, you know what he's trying to do there? I bet he's trying to insinuate that he's homophobic. Him being like, maybe there's another reason there. Because don't forget that when Kevin Spacey was accused of being a predator, okay, of being an abuser, that is when he decided to come out of the closet. He used that moment to try and divert the heat away from him by being like, by the way, I'm gay. And people rightfully got really angry that he did that. It was disgusting. It was so transparent. And so what he seems to be insinuating there is that, Oh yeah, Guy Pearce, maybe the reason you didn't like to hang out with me is because you're actually homophobic.
Doesn't make any sense that you would have just been leading me on, right? But here you are now on a mission.
Yeah, or like a closeted homosexual.
Another reason, I don't know. But that doesn't make any sense that you would have just been leading me on, right? But here you are now.
Huh, okay, there it is. Yeah. Yeah, that you would be leading me on. Oh my God, I fucking hate this man so much. I hate this man. I hate this man. Oh, it doesn't make any sense that you would be leading. This is why Kevin Spacey, all these people, okay, all these abusers, they don't deserve redemption because they do nothing to earn that redemption. All right? It's the same thing over and over again where they turn it around and they're like, actually, I'm the victim here. I'm the victim here because they are narcissists, because they too believe that their talent trumps everything else, because they are still abusive people. And the only reason that they are suffering consequences is because people came forward about them. Not because they're like, oh, you know what? I've spent a lot of my life causing harm to people and I'm doing some inward reflection here. No.
On a mission some 28 years later, after I'd been through hell and back, to do what? Just in time to stop the bad guy? Huh? Is that what's going on here? What took you so long? Did your horse run out of gas? I mean, you want to have a conversation? I'm happy to do so anytime, any place. We can even do it here, live on X if you like. I've got nothing to hide. But Guy, you need to grow up. You are not a victim.
Oh my God. Dude, he's doing the debate bro shit. He's like, why don't you debate me, bro? Why don't you debate me, bro? Why don't we jump on here? Why don't you debate me, bro? Maddie, thank you for the 14 months. Dude, he is a fucking villain, okay? Can this be the last nail in the coffin of Kevin Spacey is an awful human being? Guy is nominated for an Oscar. He doesn't need more clout. Yeah. Yeah, Kevin Spacey, just so you know, you are still kind of persona non grata, okay? You fell hard. You fell hard from the lofty position you were in. Guy Pearce coming out to further clarify what his experience with you was is in no way getting clout. Because, first of all, that's not why victims come forward with their stories. Second of all, you ain't got any clout to fucking give, mate. What do you have? This feels like Frank Underwood being revived again. He just can't stop. He can't. You know what I always think of? Those tweets where people be like, hey guys, really excited. It's my first day working with this new PR firm. Oh, one of our clients is Kevin Spacey. Like, hope everything goes well. Yeah. So, you know, I just we live in a culture where sexual misconduct, sexual violence against women, we are still struggling to put an end to it, right? To unnormalize a culture that is a rape culture. But as a reminder that, of course, men are victims of sexual harassment and sexual assault as well. And often what happens is, because of it being labeled as gay, well, we still have plenty of homophobia in our society as well. And so it's not taken seriously. It's considered by swaths of the population still as not even something that can really exist. Like, men can't be sexually assaulted, men can't be victims. So it's just, I want to remind us all that sexual violence is sexual violence. Abuse is abuse, no matter who it happens to. And of course, when we talk about it, it's in the context of that men are, the main perpetrators of abuse, and women are the main receivers of said abuse. But we have situations that arise like this, where you have someone like Kevin Spacey, who has a pattern, a history of using his power, his influence, to abuse and violate men around him. Whether that was whether that was at the old Vic, whether it was on the set of House of Cards, on any of his film sets, whether it was at a party where there would be people who were young men who were aspiring actors who were new in the business, and Kevin Spacey would dangle his influence, would dangle his power over them. So I just, it is tiresome. It is tiresome to not only keep hearing from these fucking assholes, but also to keep hearing from people who want to defend them. That the most important thing in some people's lives is not to ensure that we live in a world where people don't have to, people aren't abused and violated by men like Kevin Spacey, but that Kevin Spacey, gets to continue to work in the film industry. Like, what are your priorities? What are your priorities that you care more about somebody's athletic talent, that you care more about, some actors' movies that you are a fan of, that you care more about a politician who, God, why the fuck are you even standing a politician in the first place, than you do about the many, many people, the many, many other people whose careers were ruined because of what these monsters did to them. Who, how many aspiring actors never got the opportunity to have a career like Kevin Spacey because of Kevin Spacey. So we never think about the victims whose careers, whose lives, whose emotional and physical health is destroyed. And every time their abuser is being defended, that's like another knife in the chest of, oh, I'm so glad that what is valued here is this piece of shit abuser because they have had a really great career, and God forbid we lose their talent. That is valued over the life of somebody who was abused by them.